Welcome back to Tabletop Saga. This week we're going to be talking about the reconfirmation by Games Workshop that neither Kislev nor Cathay will be in the game, at least for the foreseeable future. This actually shouldn't be a surprise. We've been told this several times now, but I've still seen quite a lot of consternation out there in the groups, and I can understand why. You know, a few years ago, Games Workshop originally teased the old world by giving us all this concept art for Kislev, and they were very clear. Kislev and Cathay would be in the game. It seemed like Kislev would be the main focus of the game at release, and you know, somewhere along the line that was all thrown out and we've got what we've got now. And actually, for people who don't keep up with everything Games Workshop release, I can see why they'd be confused that Kislev and Cathay are not in the game. So I guess for those people, what I'm trying to do with this video is offer you a modicum of comfort, a crumb of solace, and basically explain to you why it's not the end of the world, and that actually it's quite a good thing that neither Kislev nor Cathay are in the old world as it stands. So first off, let's have a think about why they won't be in the game anymore. I've seen people saying that they think it's production issues, that Games Workshop doesn't have the capacity to produce Kislev and Cathay, as well as everything else in their multitude of ranges. Could be true. I doubt it, because if that were the case, you'd think that given Kislev was initially teased as being the focus, if it were to remain the focus, they'd prioritise that over everything else. And that actually, it seems like they've changed the focus of the game now away from them. And Games Workshop themselves, if you check out their annual report, they say that they're happy with their production facilities, that they are happy with how much stuff they can make right now. So clearly, they don't see there being production issues. So I really don't think it is production issues. I think that what we're actually seeing is the change in strategy for the old world from being this kind of completely new, brand spanking new game with new minis and new races to something which is a lot less finance intense for Games Workshop to produce. So that's where I think the crux of it is. I think it's a financial decision made by management to not have these in it. We know that plastic kits cost an arm and a leg to produce. A company as big as Games Workshop has got not only the plastic molds to produce, which is excruciatingly expensive from what I'm told, they've also got all the people who are there to design these things. They've got the concept art, etc., etc. And also the other thing is the specialist design studio is quite small. So, you know, if you were going to have these brand new races and everything like that, it would take up an awful lot of their time, which they could be using to do other stuff for Old World, but also to release the other specialist games, to work on those, because they're still going to do that as well. It's not just Old World they work on. So there's capacity and also finance, because as rich as Games Workshop are, and believe me, they are incredibly rich. They've got so much cash reserves lying around, and, you know, yeah, they're just bonkers rich. But they're still a company. They're not going to run a project at a loss. That would be bonkers. So the old world shouldn't be looked upon as, can Games Workshop afford to do new plastic miniatures? You should look at it instead as, will doing new plastic miniatures lead to a profit? Possibly not. The old world's quite small. I mean, I think it's still better than anyone thought, but would it be enough to justify entirely new plastic ranges? I don't know. But I can see that Games Workshop probably weren't confident enough in the game, in the old world release, to chuck out new plastics for it, barring a couple of little characters. So this is anecdotal, but the guy that runs my friendly local gaming store was saying that just prior to the old world release, Games Workshop reps came in to see him. They were very keen to know, how well did you think the game would do? Did he plan on pushing it a lot? Did he think that it would take up a lot of room in his store? Would he basically advertise it properly, and would he try and get a little community going? And he said to me that he felt like possibly they were a little bit nervous, that they were a bit scared actually that it was going to flop, it wasn't going to make the money back that they spent on it. And if that is true, and that is the case, and it's something that permeates Games Workshop management, you can see that they're definitely going to have been worried that Old World would be a financial loss maker. So they scale back all their plans for it, hence getting rid of Kislev and Cathay, going back to the old plastics, and just basically repackaging old stuff in new boxes with new rules and settling with that. So that's why I think it's happened. So now, why do I think that that's actually a good thing? Well, it kind of rolls back into stuff that we've mentioned previously on the channel, which is that if the Old World was released as a big main studio game, it would then be under pressure to perform financially. It would have to sell an inordinate amount more in order for Games Workshop to make a profit on it. B, it would be in the Games Workshop release cycle. Because in order to get to fulfill itself, you have to keep releasing new rules to get people to keep buying the new stuff. You change the rules for what's there so that a unit that was a bit rubbish before becomes really, really good and people go out and buy it. And it means that I'm possibly going to be controversial here, and maybe this is unfair to Games Workshop, but I feel like a lot of the time when they release a new rule set, a new edition for 40k for example, it's not being done to necessarily improve the game. It's not being done to fix things that were wrong in the old edition, as opposed to it's being released to basically get you to just buy a whole heap more stuff. Which is fine, it's a business model, and I don't really have a problem with it. It's just that the motivation for it is financially driven rather than thinking, how can we fix this game? How can we make it a better experience for the customer? They'll do that to an extent because they want you to buy it, so it has to be good. But they will also change rules for stuff that nobody's buying to get them to buy it now. And that's the sort of cynical side to the Games Workshop release schedule. Old World is currently safe from this. In the Specialist Design Studio, it's going to move at glacial pace. That rule book that we have and those army books are probably going to be relevant for the next, I don't know how many years, but a long time. It's going to be a settled rule system. If we get updates to rules, it will be tweaks, it will be errata and FAQs. They'll be small and they will be there purely to fix loopholes in the rules. So it's going to be a settled little thing. It's not going to have the financial pressure on it, so it's not going to be at risk of being pulled. If it needed to have that financial backing to make a profit, well, we could be back in the days of the Old World, the actual Old World, Warhammer Fantasy, the one that got nuked to bring in Age of Sigmar because it wasn't bringing in the money. Old World is free from that pressure. If you did want to back it with loads more cash to bring us new armies, that hard point that it needs to reach to make that profit, well, that gets so much higher, doesn't it? And if it is higher, it's harder to achieve. If it's harder to achieve, it's easier to look on this as a bit of a mistake. We'll cull it and we'll get rid of it. So where does that leave us? I put it to you that the Old World is currently in a very good spot for all the reasons I've just said. It's selling really, really well. It's probably surpassing what Games Workshop expected of it. And if that is the case, they may very well look at the Old World as being a really good thing, and they will start to invest more in it. Horus Heresy came out and was probably in the same position Old World is in now. I don't know because I didn't play. But what I do know is that Horus Heresy has, over time, been given more and more backing. It's got more and more books, more and more models, and it's basically gone from strength to strength. So if Old World does the same, and I, at this point, see no reason why it can't or won't, it's perfectly possible that we'll see new things in the future. The legacy factions may be brought back into the fold. We may see Kislev and Cathay come in too. Given that we've already seen a lot of concept art for Kislev at least, that's possibly not that hard for them to do. They've done a lot of the legwork. They could just go to a cupboard and pull it out and get going and have a bit of a head start on bringing in a brand new faction for us. Or sort of brand new. I remember them being around for Storm of Chaos, but they weren't really a proper faction, were they? So, you know, it's not going to make people completely change their mind. Anyone who is gutted that these two aren't in it or doesn't understand why they're not in it is probably still going to be a bit gutted about it. But hopefully, I've just given you a little bit of a positive outlook now. I'm still mega excited that the old world is back. And even though we don't have these new factions we were promised, we've still got all the old ones I love. And yes, I'm including legacy factions. They're in it, damn it. I don't care what Games Workshop say. They are in the old world, as far as I'm concerned. So, look, just try and just enjoy what we have. We can wish our lives away wanting something else, but ultimately, enjoy what we have. Keep playing. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.